part of our implementation of PCVL, we're going to be including learning intentions and success criteria into our professional learning. And the success criteria, as a reminder, is it's just what does it look like when the learning intention has been accomplished or completed. So for our meeting today, our success criteria is that by the end of the meeting, participants can evaluate and consider how their candidates will demonstrate the new general teacher preparation competencies and the new elementary content competencies. So on our agenda today, from 9 to 9:15, we'll do our agency updates. From 9:15 to 9:25, Lisa's gonna go over some legislative updates. And then from 9:25 to 9:35, we'd like to get some APPEL highlights that you guys have been seeing out in the field. From 9:35 to 9:50, we're going to start exploring the new teacher competencies. And then from 9:50 to 10:15, we're going to discuss the purpose of licensing and teacher preparation. As some of you may have noticed, we have our new website. And one thing that is different now is that the retire endorsement forms are no longer on the USBE website. However, you can still access all of the endorsement forms for active endorsements. And you can do that simply by going to the APPEL Directors Collaboration folder. And then on this very first folder called Endorsement Forms, just open that and then click on Retiring Endorsement Forms, and all of them will be in there. So if for some reason you need one of those, you can still access them, but candidates will not be able to find them unless an APPEL director. Basically, we don't want people starting on those forms now. And the reason why is because candidates have to have completed a retiring endorsement form by June 30th, 2025, and be recommended for that license or endorsement. Due to the licensing audit that we had last spring, we've had to make some adjustments to our recommendation for professional license process. And this is a process that will affect APPEL, APPEL SPED, and speech language technicians. And so we've created a new recommendation template. And so every director will need to use this template. And of course, as many of you have been doing, you can customize it and put, your own letterhead or like school logo on it. That's fine. I'm just going to open you up and show. So there's one primary difference now. And in fact, I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize. I'm going to put the slides in the chat so that you can follow along and access all of these links. Sorry about that. So on this new template, you'll notice it mostly looks exactly the same as the old one, except there's one change in the process. And so APPEL directors will continue to email this template to appel@schools.utah.gov. APPEL candidates are going to need a copy of this recommendation. So the exact same recommendation that you send to appel@schools.utah.gov, you are also going to send to the candidate, and it will have this note on the bottom. And basically, candidates are going to need to submit this recommendation in SM Apply. So they need to apply for the license. And I will show you in SM Apply what it looks like when they apply. It's a very quick application. So they'll put their name, Cactus ID, email address, the APPEL director, so whoever's recommending them for the license, that email address, and then they'll confirm that they've completed ethics within the last year and upload the recommendation letter that you sent us and that you sent them. And then they'll sign and mark as complete. And this one advantage also to doing it this way is that it will allow us to process these much faster. Sometimes during the summer, we'll have 40 recommendations backed up. And our hope is that by doing it this way, not only will we be in compliance, but we can actually process them much faster using these automations. When the candidate submits this application, the APPEL director will be notified. And then when the recommendation has been posted in Cactus, then the candidate and the APPEL director will also be notified. And that'll all be drawn from the information that the candidate enters in these fields. And then we will be creating a video and some instructions and posting those on our website, and we will send them out to all of you. That'll just go over this process and what it looks like. So are there any questions on the new recommendation process?
Hi, I'm so sorry. I joined a little bit late because of the background. May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would you just remind me where this application is to be found and whether it's immediately effective or effective at a date in the...
Yeah, you bet. So it is immediately effective. And I believe Malia just put it on the website last night. And it's under, I'm not gonna be able to find it.
It's under the apply tab. I can put the link in the chat that goes straight there.
That would be awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that clarification.
It looks like Scott asked, does the application take care of the endorsement also? Yes. So Scott, it would be the same as how you currently recommend a candidate for secondary license with a math endorsement. It's all the same process.
Okay, so they don't need to go into SM apply and fill out that
You
endorsement.
don't have to do like
application
another.
Also.
No, good question. I see what you mean. Yep.
So Shonda asked why the change, and then our university students needing to follow the same process. So the change was that due to our internal audit, the audit discovered that candidates that when they get a license, they need to be applying for that license. So the relationship that we have with the candidate is somewhat blurred with our APPEL programs. So there needs to be a point where the candidate actually goes in and accepts the terms of that license. And that's what this SM apply process is doing. So they go in and they say, yes, I want the license and I'm willing to abide by all the expectations of that license. University students are doing a similar process in Cactus that has been available to them for a long time. Then they will do a similar process when we get to SM to USIMS. And so first reason is that we needed to change our process due to audit findings. And the second one is so that hopefully it'll be a faster process and we won't get lost with paperwork sometimes.
Any other questions on this process? Travis asked if he sent in 2 recommendations yesterday. Does he need to redirect them to SM apply? We'll consider this effective today. So anyone you recommend from today would need to go through SM apply.
And we'll also send out an email to anybody who did not attend this meeting today that has the same instructions.
Yep. And then this is the link that Malia put on the chat. And this is just, and everything they're doing right now, right? They're doing the background check, they're doing the ethics. It's just one additional step, get the recommendation from the director, submit it in SM apply. And one thing, there's one trick in SM apply. If you sign in to SM apply and then you just come back and click on this link. No, that did not go how it was supposed to go.
I can link that to the website. I can update that to be the direct link.
That would be great. Thank you. If it is the direct link like this one, then it'll just take you straight to it and you don't have to fish around to find this professional license application. So okay, any other questions? Looks like there might be a few more in the chat. Okay. Shonda asks, does SM apply a temporary process? Malia just says she's guessing it for about a year total, but it'll depend on the USIM's development. Travis says, we're still sending the letter to you. Correct, Travis. Still send us the letter. So from your side, really not much has changed. You'll just want to make sure the candidates are informed and know that now they have to take that letter and also send it to us in SM Apply. Good questions.
Shonda asked, why doing the double work, sending it to you and the application? Mostly to verify that the letter that they attach in their application is correct and accurate. This is not a foolproof process, so we like to double check that the information they're submitting is legitimate. Yes, thank you, Travis. And most of you, I believe, are also when you send the letters to us, you're also CCing the candidate anyway, and that's basically all that we would need. So send it to us and them at the same time. You'll notice the new template does give instructions on what the candidate needs to do with that letter once they receive it. And it should be pretty self-explanatory, but if we need to make adjustments, let us know.
Yeah, and please let us know if there's something we maybe overlooked that could make it more clear for candidates. That is certainly possible. Crystal asks, so does this mean we cannot be putting more than one candidate on a letter? I don't think you can, Crystal, because it's the same letter you're going to send to the candidate. So I don't think you'd want to put everyone you're recommending at the same time.
Well, and also cactus numbers are protected, and so you can't share one cactus number with a different educator.
Any other questions on this? These are good questions. Crystal, it won't double the emails coming in because the candidates will be going to SM Apply and doing it. So the emails that we get, oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, in that case, we would get one email per candidate being recommended. That is correct. Travis says, or one email with 5 attached letters. You could do it that way, Travis. But then you would want to send your candidates individually letters so that they don't see the recommendation letters for all the other candidates in the same email. Okay. Okay. I think we're good to move on now. Okay. Jennifer Prince is going to talk about this agency update.
So hopefully you have seen some information about the PCBL Summit. It is coming up in March. But we just wanted to make you aware that in conjunction with the PCBL Summit, there's going to be a masterclass offered. It's going to be on the following day after the PCBL Summit, and Dr. Karen Hess is going to be doing the presentation in the afternoon. They're having another presenter in the morning, and I cannot remember his name. I was trying to find it. But you're welcome to do one or both of those sessions. And what it's about is just improving your formative practice. This first masterclass is geared towards directors or coaches, administration. And then just keep in mind that the session that's going to be held with Dr. Karen Hess, she's going to do 2 follow-up classes that are going to be held virtually that will coincide with the content that she is presenting. So we just wanted to make you aware of that. And the links to those flyers are attached to this slide. I am assuming they will record the master classes, but I don't know. I am just the messenger. I'm not the person in charge, but I'm going to assume they will.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, next Lisa is going to discuss some of the legislative updates.
So these are the bills that we shared with you last month, and just providing an update on these. So HB 208 sub 2 is a teacher licensure amendments bill sponsored by Representative Thurston. And the sub 2 added a statement in there that said the state board may not make licensure contingent upon passage of a pedagogical performance assessment. Now, as we've been listening to the representative share this bill in the committees, he assures us that this does not prevent programs from using the pedagogical performance assessment in their programs. It also does not prevent the board from having a pedagogical performance assessment as an option for demonstrating competency. So it just means that they don't have to pass a pedagogical performance assessment to get a license. And then in addition to that, the state board, in consultation with administrators and staff, shall develop a strategy for modifying traditional and alternate teacher preparation programs. The strategy shall consider 1, competency-based approaches, 2, experiential that word, learning, including apprenticeships and degree agnostic qualifications. So in the next 5 years or so, we'll need to sit down with probably some of you to discuss how we could modify our traditional and alternate programs to include these ideas. And that bill has passed the House, the committee on the floor, and the Senate committee yesterday. It needs Senate floor approval and the governor's signature, so it's likely going to pass this session, but we shall see. Anything you want to add to that, Malia?
I'll just answer. Joylene asked the question, what does that mean for teachers who are currently taking a PPAT? The board is going to discuss how they're going to address this. If this becomes law, what that means. We don't know what the board is going to do. We are kind of grappling with some ideas internally where could be similar to what we do with the praxis, where it's either the praxis or something else, or with the foundations of reading, it's the foundations of reading or a competency-based pathway. We're just still kind of looking at what that means. We're anticipating that the bill would, if the bill passes, it would go into effect sometime in May-ish. And so the board would likely discuss this in their law and licensing committee in April.
So I think you answered Brittany's question. Kelly has, why was this even proposed? What's the backstory?
And the backstory for, there's a couple different there's lots of different stories that the representative is using to as the impetus for this bill. One is he feels that there are a lot of barriers to higher education and wants to address some of those barriers to open the pipeline to teaching. And that really is the crux of the issue, is he's trying to reduce barriers to become a teacher.
And then Shonda S says, aren't all the competencies already in effect? Couldn't they serve as a pathway rather than the assessment?
Potentially, we're not sure what that's going to look like.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so that's one we'll definitely watch, and we'll provide some more information when we have it. And then SB 137 sub 1 is the teacher empowerment bill by Fillmore and Peterson. This one has passed the House and the Senate, just needs the governor's signature. This one expands the allowable uses of funds allocated for paid professional hours. I think the biggest change is it allows teachers to be able to travel to attend a conference and use their paid professional hours for that. Renames the TSSP to salary supplements for highly needed educators, creates a litigation account to support LEAs, and modifies teacher evaluation to include an alternative process. And from what I understand, that alternative process is basically that if a student is chronically absent, then they're not required to include their test scores in that evaluation process. Any questions or comments about that?
I just put it into the chat, but this bill has a sister bill, which is SB 173, which is it's called Market Informed Compensation for Teachers. But that bill redefines the salary supplements for highly needed teachers program and allows LEAs to define their highly needed teachers and the qualifications for those teachers that would qualify for a bonus. It also creates a second program that is called, I think it's SHINE is going to be the acronym, but it's for teachers who are highly effective. And this would, the Center of the School of the Future at the Utah State University would define what qualifications make somebody a highly effective teacher and or top performing. And so then that would be an additional bonus available. This bill, 173, has a $200 million appropriation, and it was recommended for funding out of the Public Education Appropriation Committee. And so it is likely that it will be funded, but we will have to see how this one shakes out.
There's a lot of things we're watching for executive appropriations, and I understand they're going to meet tomorrow. We'll give our first indication of what they're going to fund and what they're not going to fund. I will also add that Grow Your Own was not recommended for funding by the Public Ed Appropriations Committee. We're still hoping that executive appropriations will give us additional funding for that. But if they do not, we will not be able to have additional cohorts for Grow Your Own until we get additional funding. We'll try and ask again next year. We've still got one more year of cohort 3 that's participating. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Anything else that we need to add about legislative updates? Okay. All right. In our March Law and Licensing Committee, the licensing staff has been asked to share some of the highlights of APPEL programs. And we had a couple ideas, but we thought since we had some time and this meeting came up pretty quick, that we would ask you, because you guys are in the trenches and work with these candidates on a daily basis. And so we'd like to hear some of those success stories, specifically practices, programs, or stories that have helped candidates complete your program, ways that you've provided flexible support to educators. So we've got a Google Doc here, and I'm probably going to give you about 4 minutes to just jot some ideas down that you would be comfortable if we shared with the law and licensing staff in March. Oh, shoot, I've got to change the permissions. Just 1 second.
Would you be able to send a link out to your APPEL specialist? Because I'm unfortunately traveling and can't actually stop and do this, but I would love to put in a story.
Yes, I will also send it out in the email that we're sending out after this meeting. We do need to have these done by tomorrow, I believe, because we've got to get it up into board backup. So we do have a tight crunch on that.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Okay, I believe I've changed permissions, so you should be able to go in and edit it. We're out of time. You're welcome to keep writing if you think of something. We'll have to start preparing our board backup tomorrow. So if you think of something between now and tomorrow and want to add it to the sheet, you're welcome to. Thank you for those of you that were able to come up with something so quickly. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Prince, I believe, to talk about our new competencies.
So as you are probably aware, the new general teacher preparation competencies were approved by the board in January. And then they also did the elementary content competencies as well during that meeting. And they're going to replace the ones that are currently in R277304. But they won't take effect until September 1st of 2025. And so we have shared the competencies before. I don't know if you want to, you can click on those links to open them back up. This is the general teaching competencies. So some of the things we want to point out is that there are 3 categories that the competencies fall into. And these are the basic concept knowledge, application, and demonstration. So in thinking about how your program is going to meet the new competencies, just some things to keep in mind. So if a competency is marked in your basic concept knowledge, that just means they need to have some knowledge of that competency. Application is a little bit different, but it is still items that could be done through coursework. It could be done through a lesson plan. It's not necessarily one that has to be done in a classroom setting with students. And so just keeping that in mind, that these ones that are marked application, but our demonstration competencies are going to be what typically was called the clinical competencies in the past. So these are the competencies that we will need to see and that the teachers are actually doing in a classroom with students. And so it'll be a little bit different. You're going to see that there are more demonstration competencies than we have had in the past. And so, but most of them are pretty similar to the competencies, the clinical competencies that we've had, just focusing around good teaching practices. And so just a little bit about that as you're looking at those slides and why we have those 3 different sections. And the general teaching competencies, they're going to be required for every teacher. But then these are the new competencies for just the early childhood and elementary. We have the literacy ones. They were approved in a previous board meeting. And so these ones in this document are dealing with the other content areas for elementary that they are required to teach. So you'll have your math, the science, the PE, health, art. And so, and they're going to be set up exactly the same as the general competencies with our basic knowledge, application, and demonstration. And so you can kind of look through those and see the requirements that are going to be needed for that content area. So these were actually developed by our content specialists. So they're a little different in their wording, but there are still exemplars there that you can see kind of the meaning behind the competency. And so it'll be good to get familiar with those as well as the literacy ones. The literacy ones are linked in the rule, in the board rule. I don't think we have that link attached to these slides, but we can.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, but we'll get that to you so you can see those ones as well. And a lot of the literacy ones follow with a lot of the science of reading legislation that has been happening over the past few years. So that's those.
Jennifer, could I ask a question?
Please do.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand. I'm driving, and so I'm just muting and unmuting. But this is Jason Straight from Q's.
Oh.
What my question is is we know that there's like probably some changes coming, but has there been any like crosswalk between a PPA and these competencies that if a teacher chose to take the PPA, that certain competencies would be fulfilled with that PPA? Or through, I guess if we also communicate, I guess with education departments at universities, they will be probably implementing coursework with their courses for their candidates to meet these competencies. Could you address that question a little bit?
You bet. And thank you for asking that. It actually goes in with the next thing. So Andrew, if you'll go to the next slide. Or nope, the next one. So I have been working on crosswalks. This particular crosswalk is showing an alignment with the standards, the portrait of a first year teacher, our PCBL standards, and the high quality instruction cycle. So you can kind of see how the competencies were developed with regards to a lot of the documents that USBE already has in practice. As you look down through this one, you will see some competencies that are red. I just want to point out that those are not new competencies. Those were from the previous set of clinicals that were in board rule that remained in board rule. So just to point those out, because they are still going to be, there's still that expectation for those. I am in the process of working on a crosswalk with the PPAT or the PPA. I'm not quite finished with it, but it will show you the different competencies and how they can be addressed through the PPA. Kind of like the way that things have been done, Shonda, to answer your question, you are not going to necessarily have a checklist and have to mark off every single competency. I see that they could be grouped together kind of in the same way that we had before with the different courses where they're going to be addressed. And as you look through the competencies, several of them are very similar. So I think that you'll see that they're going to meet several competencies perhaps in one setting, if that makes sense. We actually have been working on a crosswalk with the courses as well. That one is not quite finished. Someone was asking a question.
Yeah, so will you mind, Andrew, going to the next slide? Let's see, maybe the one before that. Back. Okay, sorry, went too far. Next one, and next one, and next one. Okay,
So,
go ahead, Jen.
oh no, I was just gonna, while you were looking, Amy, yes, you're welcome to share these competencies with your PE people, whoever you would like to. And Brittany, these are not going to go into effect until September 1st, 2025. So this is where you're going to have time to look at coursework and make sure that you have time to get things ready before they're going to go into effect. Okay, so go ahead.
So that slide that we were just on. Next, that one. Okay, so we're going to have additional resources coming soon that includes a new PLP template and supporting documents with indicators on what does competency look like for some of these competencies that are not as self-explanatory. One of the competencies is attending an IEP meeting. That's pretty self-explanatory, but some of them, like establishing a positive classroom environment, might need some more indicators. So that will help as you're looking through these competencies and trying to decide how you're going to help candidates demonstrate competency. and we're going to provide some examples of evidence that can be used to demonstrate competency. That could include taking a course, doing a PPA, creating a portfolio, doing a micro-credential, having an evaluation form, etc. Utah EPP Standard 1.1 says an approved educator preparation program shall ensure completers can effectively demonstrate the educator preparation competencies in board rule. So when we say educator preparation competencies, we're talking about general teacher preparation and content competencies. And during this next year, all of our programs, including university programs, are going to be going through the same process of review. And that's where you will sit down and have a conversation with your teams and your stakeholders and your cooperating universities or whoever you work with to come up with a plan on what kind of evidence are you going to be collecting that ensures that candidates have demonstrated competency. And that will be done probably from June of this year till June of next year. And in the March meeting, we're going to share a draft of kind of the process that we're going to use to evaluate programs for doing that. So we've got some more information coming. Yes, Jason.
Just a question, because you and Andrew and everybody you've been doing a lot of audits and going around and looking at programs. Mine's been through it. What's really going to change from the way that we've been showing competency with those clinicals and the dispositions than what we're already doing?
Don't imagine there's going to be huge changes. It's just because, and as Shonda's been looking at some of her classes, she notices there's a lot of similarities between the new competencies and the old competencies. I think the biggest change we'll see is that level of demonstrated competency is a little more clear. So when we list a competency and we say that it's a application competency, that could be done through a lesson plan. It could be done through attending a course. If it's a demonstration competency, we really do expect that candidate to be in a classroom with students demonstrating that competency. So how we're evaluating that competency might look a little bit different.
Okay, but I mean, like the clinicals, you've seen mine. It's their work showing what they're doing in a class. So I guess my question is, what's really going to change?
With the way that you're doing, I don't see a whole lot of changes except just saying this evidence is demonstrating this new competency.
Okay, that's all I wanted to kind of know is, yeah, because I think most programs are doing it kind of the same and similar. So
yes.
The hope is that the competencies are just bringing a little bit clearer expectation than there was in the past. I don't think it's going to need to be a systematic total overhaul change to what you're doing. Travis, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I might just be repeating what was just said, but I was going to say, for Jason and for others that this is a little bit concerning. To me, as I'm looking at this, all it is looking at what we're doing now, and we might see some holes. Like we look at those new competencies, we might see a couple things that we need to tweak. We might need to add adjust a lesson, adjust something we're doing, but nothing massive. I don't see this as a massive redesign. It's just looking for holes that we miss because the rules have changed a little. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I feel like the competencies still address the basic teacher principles that we care about, some good classroom management. Can they teach to the standards? So I don't feel like there's going to be a huge shift, but maybe others will see that differently. I don't know.
Shonda did put a question in here that I think might be good to address. Is our district has outside teachers / technicians teaching some of those elementary subjects, such as health and PE and fine arts. So if our teachers aren't teaching those, how can they demonstrate all of those content competencies when they aren't teaching them? And I think the important thing to say here is that when a teacher gets a professional license in elementary, it is saying that they are qualified to teach all of those subjects. And, you know, they are expected to teach health, they are expected to teach PE. In a situation where they've already got somebody that's doing that, I think it would be helpful to have them sit down on a lesson and help co-teach a lesson a certain day so that they can demonstrate those competencies. And that might be an adjustment that needs to be made.
I know at the university level. Oh. Was someone else talking? At the university level, those are often just those method courses that they take, that they just kind of learn the basic pedagogy behind them. So
yeah, and there are, I don't know if you could quickly go back to those elementary content competencies, Andrew. You're doing a really good job driving today. So again, where it's linked as application, it's something that they could demonstrate by taking a course or creating a lesson plan, you know, kind of doing a reflection piece. But the demonstration ones, they would need to be in a classroom working with students on that. And each content is a little bit different about which ones are application and which ones are demonstration, but I'm pretty sure each content area has at least one demonstration competency, I should say. Some of them they're all demonstration. I think fine arts might be that way. So it'd be good to just take a look at that and see what adjustments might need to be made in your program so that your candidates can demonstrate those competencies at the level that the board has specified. And I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Do we have any other questions on competencies?
I'll ask one about the deadlines. I'm getting ready to do some planning with academic coaches. Would it maybe be smart we can incorporate these for next year, I guess, right? We don't have to wait.
Yes, you're welcome to do it earlier than September 1st, 2025.
And that slide mentioned something about a reapproval process. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yes, so this last year we've been reviewing all of our secondary programs, university programs, and basically what we did is we just sent a form out that says, here's the competency, tell us how you're going to ensure that candidates are demonstrating that competency. And we're anticipating the process will be very similar for these new competencies. So we've got our team working on kind of that process that we were going to share a draft with you next month. But if you would like us to share it with you earlier, we might be able to do that. And we'd like to get your feedback on that to make sure that's also going to work with APPEL, because we haven't done this with APPEL programs yet. But then we'll implement that by June so that you'll have a year to implement those.
Travis made a comment about working with maybe some of the universities to add methods coursework. And we have been talking with some of the universities, some of them are here in this meeting, about, you know, realigning the general pedagogy and the need there may be for some more elementary content methods coursework. And Shonda, so I know that you said, so the methods doesn't meet all the competencies. You can have demonstration competencies in a course. The course, we just need to provide them opportunities to demonstrate the competency in the classroom. So it's not that you couldn't do it through a course, it's just that you don't have to do it through a course.
And we've also, one of the things, because the pedagogical performance assessment does require them to be in a classroom with students and to show implementation in the classroom. And as we're looking through those, even competencies that are marked as application, that they don't have to do it in the classroom, if they did a PPA and passed it, and it demonstrated some of those competencies, even at a higher level, that would also count. So that's something we'll also put in that crosswalk. And if you're looking at, if you've got candidates that are completing micro-credentials, because micro-credentials also require them to be in a classroom with students and implementing them that way, then in a demonstration level, that it would also meet some of those competencies.
And one thing for you guys to consider, especially those of you who offer your own coursework, is when you look at those competencies, do you want your coursework to satisfy all the competencies, demonstration and application? Or do you want to have a separate process for some of them, or do you want to just have your coursework satisfy application and maybe collect artifacts? Or there's several ways you can do this. Micro credentials for the demonstration competencies. So when we think back to our success criteria for this meeting, these were some of the things that we would like you guys to begin thinking about, and maybe even providing feedback to us on ideas that you have or questions that you have. It would be very helpful. So Kelly, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted clarification. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so they go into effect September 1st, 2025. And we have started candidates this year that will be recommended June of 2026. Do we need to be working on these new ones with them, or the plan as is okay until they, and I mean, some maybe even, is it 2026? Do we have any 2027? Anyway, that's my question.
I'm happy to answer that, Kelly. So you do not have to start any candidate who is enrolled between now and August 31st, 2025. They can do the current competencies that everybody else is doing right now. As programs begin to maybe make some modifications or changes, it's possible that you may get to the new competencies before September 1st, 2025, and that's fine too. And then new candidates could fall into that competency alignment instead of what we're currently doing. But they do not have to. So that would only be if you choose to do, if you say, I think it's easier to just change things now and align everything now to the new competencies in your program. That would just be up to you when you want to do that. Any candidate enrolled after September 1st, 2025 their program has to align to the new competencies.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Andrew.
you for that clarification.
I'm looking at some other questions in the chat. Let's make sure I go back far enough. It looks like the PE competencies are all demonstration. I guess it was PE I was thinking of, not fine arts. So if we made a course, it would all need to be shown by demonstration, not application or concept knowledge. Yes, that would be correct. And we did have this question from the universities because they said, well, we actually teach 3 courses that that align to this competency, but only 2 of those courses are doing it at an application level. And then this other course has that student clinical experience component to it. So do we list all 3 courses and would say, no, we really just care about the one that shows that they're demonstrating at the level that we're looking for. So they would just list that one course. And that's part of, if you feel like educators need additional support before they get in the classroom and start doing it, that's totally up to you. You're welcome to add that component into your classroom, opportunities for them to continue to learn. In the board rule, it does say that programs need to offer multiple opportunities for candidates to demonstrate competency. And that could be, prior to doing it in a classroom with students. So those are all ideas that you can keep in mind as you're looking at your revamping your programs. And then it said, would you recap the legislative status on the performance assessment, specifically a timeline? The bill that would remove the requirement for licensure in passing a pedagogical performance assessment has passed all the major hurdles. It hasn't passed yet, but if it does, the board will need to decide how they're going to change their rule to align to that law. But we don't anticipate that will happen probably until May or June.
Amy, to answer your question, micro-credential for elementary PE, would that be enough? We would need to look at the micro-credential and see if it allows candidates to demonstrate the competencies. So,
And that is something that we're gonna have to do with all of our micro-credentials, is just make sure that they align to the new competencies. So we're gonna be doing the same thing that you're doing with some of our resources. So it's gonna be fun. Did I get all the questions answered? Let's see. It looks like Travis and Shonda were talking about how they might be able to demonstrate those. So that's good. I think we got them all answered. Okay, this next collaboration project is going to introduce a new thing. Hopefully it works. So I'd like to create a word cloud. And if you guys aren't familiar with what a word cloud is, it's basically taking a whole bunch of words and throwing them together in a cloud. Words that are popular and come up a lot will appear bigger in the word cloud than the ones that are smaller. So I've got a QR code in the slides, and there's also a link to this website where you can go. You don't have to submit any personal information, but you just put in a word. So when we say, what is the purpose of licensing? We're looking for 2 words. Put the first word in there, and then possibly if you can think of a second word, you can put that in there as well. And then we'll show you, I'm just mostly getting an idea of what the first thing that comes to mind for you when you think what the purpose of licensing is. You can scan it with your phone, or you can click the link there and do it on your computer. Ooh, we've got 3 people. Good. Somebody got it. Okay, we got some more. And I think I might share my screen here because it's popping up on this outside website that I want to share with you. But I don't want to skew the results. So I'm going to give about another 10 seconds for people to get it in there.
Andrew, I think you need to go back to the former slide that had the QR code.
Yes, please.
Travis, this is where the link is.
Let's drop that link in the chat. Just 1 second. Okay, I think we've got a pretty good word cloud here. Let me share it with you. Okay, well, that's exciting. It actually kind of worked. And I might have to like take a screenshot of this because I think this is pretty cool. So we've got a couple of words there. We do have, so qualified, qualifications, I think are pretty similar. Accountability, quality, flexibility, competency seems to be the biggest word right there in the middle. Professional, student learning, competent, similar to competency, proof, preparation. We do have some oversight, confident teachers, alignment, minimum, qualification, I think is probably what there is. So that's interesting. It's kind of giving us an idea of what we think the purpose of licensing is from a teacher preparation standpoint. So thank you for participating in my activity today. All right, I'm going to go back to the slides. Let's see. Let me scroll down to where we left off. Oops, no, sorry. Okay, so raise your hand if you've seen the Barbie movie. I watched this again recently. And if you remember, for those of you that haven't seen the show, Barbie and Ken are dolls. and they live in this Barbie land, which is make-believe land, but then somehow they end up in the real world. And Ken discovers what he calls patriarchy, where he thinks that he gets to do all kinds of things because he's a man. And so he goes, first he wants to be a CEO. So he talks to the CEO of this company, says, I want to be in charge. And they said, okay, well, do you have an MBA? And he goes, no. And he goes, have you had any kind of qualifications? No. He's like, okay, well, then we can't hire you. He's like, but I'm a man. He's like, well, sorry, you have to have qualifications. And then he wants to go be a doctor, and he's talking to a doctor and he says, I want to go do an aptum. He wants to go perform surgery. They said, well, do you have a doctorate degree? And he goes, no. And so he gets the 3rd degree. And now he's like, well, I'm a beach, because his main purpose is beach. And so he goes, he wants to stand on the beach. And they said, well, are you going to be a lifeguard? And he goes, no. Do you have any swim lessons? No. So he gets really frustrated because he doesn't feel like he can do anything in the real world. And then he sings his big song and talks to Barbie and says that, you know, if it weren't for things like technicalities like MBAs, medical degrees, and I don't know, swim lessons, I could have ruled that world. So it's a really funny moment, but it kind of reminded me of this conversation that we're having about what the purpose of licensing is. When we talk about, we've done a couple of research projects here, both in Utah and nationwide, and repeatedly we get a common theme here that says educators with a professional license have higher student outcomes than educators with provisional, emergency, or no licenses. Also, educators with a professional license are more likely to stay in the profession than educators with provisional, emergency, or no licenses. And this applies not only to Utah's licensing system, but also other states as well. So we've had national data that shows that educators who have a professional license have higher student outcomes and are more likely to stay in the profession. And in Utah, to earn a professional license, according to board rule, you basically need 3 things. One is to have a bachelor's degree. You have to complete an educator prep program and pass a pedagogical performance assessment. And so, you know, that seems pretty simple. And there's only 3 qualifications. But I think it's interesting to have a discussion, and that's what I'd like to do with our last, 5-10 minutes, is why might these things help educators have higher student outcomes and stay in the profession? Because in all these studies, we aren't able to analyze specific practices that have higher student outcomes. It's just kind of by proxy of, well, if they have a license, they do have student outcomes. So what is it about that license that you feel like helps increase student outcomes and help them stay in the profession longer? I think we could probably start with the obvious one about complete a preparation program. Oh, whoops, let me go back. Back, there it is. Oops, no, too far. Okay, so I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms and we'll have a discussion probably about 4 minutes. Let's start with that complete a preparation program. So what is it about a preparation program that would help educators have higher student outcomes or stay in the profession longer? And then if you want to tackle the conversation about a bachelor's degree or a pedagogical performance assessment, you're welcome to. That would be like the extension activity. But let's start with the preparation program. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 30 people. I'd like to have about 5. So I'm going to do 5. Let's do 4 groups. Let's see. So in your breakout rooms, have a discussion about what do you think about completing a teacher preparation program helps candidates have higher student outcomes or stay in the profession. Okay. So this, I think, is something that we could keep in the back of our minds as we are aligning our programs to those new competencies as things change on the legislative front, is, because we kind of yes, we would assume that people who have more credentials should have better outcomes. And we would like to keep it that way, right? So, and unfortunately, that doesn't, just because they have a license doesn't necessarily, tell us why having a license could help with those outcomes. So I think it's good to have those conversations and those brainstormings. And as you're working with your teams, what is it about completing a preparation program that could help educators have better student outcomes and or stay in the profession? And I think it's worth a further discussion on that. We could probably dive into some of the literature to see, you know, like we talked previously about mentors and how important mentors were for candidates. And Steve mentioned how they get a chance to practice that before they get in there. So I think all of those there's a lot of great answers there. So we'll keep looking at that and trying to get at that, those big ideas of what really helps our educators help students and stay in the profession longer. Any other thoughts or comments on that? Okay, well, we appreciate your participation today. And that's about all we've got planned. So there's just a reminder of our resources. Oh, whoops, our next Apple Directors meeting will actually be in April. No, March. What are we? The months are blending together, folks. So now is February. The next meeting will be in March. I believe it's like March 20 something, probably, whatever the fourth Thursday is. Let me look really fast. March 28th. So almost the end of March. So we're excited about that. And if you have any questions before then, feel free to reach out to any one of our team and we can help you with that. We'll stay on the line here to help answer any questions that you guys might have. Thank you for coming. Have a great day.